Hello friends, welcome back to my show. It is Christmas time again and it is time for Santa Claus to appear. It's time for the reindeer. It's time for snow on fir trees. And the sale season is already on, all across the world. Many people think it is a myth, but more than 53% of the people on earth believe that Christ was born on 25th of December. But was he really born on that day? Let us explore that a bit deeper. It would indeed be a valid question to ask, is it really important to discuss that? Well, friends, all around the world, we are using a calendar which is commonly called the Gregorian calendar. And that is based on a singular historical event. And that defining moment of history is the birth of Jesus. Any year on the calendar that we see or we read in history books is based with a reference to this event. It's either before Christ or it is after Christ or after the birth of Christ. Before Christ is shortened as BC and after Christ is AD, Anno Domini, the year of the Lord. And in recent times, there have been attempts by our secular friends to rename BC as BCE, which is before Common Era. And the period of time after the birth of Christ is known as Common Era. But the central fact remains that the defining moment is the birth of Christ. And that is acknowledged the world over as 25th of December, 2022 years ago. But if we get the dates wrong, are we not following a wrong calendar? Doesn't it mess things up in a scientific temper society? In this video, we shall try to find out what the date of birth of Christ could have been. I'll be providing you with a list of references, which in turn will lead you to more clues about it, and you can do your own research. Now, if you look back at Roman history, you will find that it is very well recorded through edicts, stone tablets, scrolls, etc. Romans were very good at record keeping, and they even conducted the first census in the world and taxed every person in the kingdom. This was an exercise with limited resources, but it was more thorough or as thorough as a social security card in the US and the Aadhaar card in India. Now, if we draw a timeline, say from 63 BC or BCE, we will meet many historical figures with whom we are familiar. For example, Pompey, Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, Augustus Caesar. All these are household names. And then, of course, there is Herod the Great. He was the king of Jews and he ruled over Palestine from around 37 BC till he died in 4 BC. And after 4 BC, there was another king. We have also heard of Pontius Pilate, during whose reign as a governor, Christ was crucified. So all these are very well recorded. Now mark this particular date, 4 BCE, which was the year when Herod died and he was succeeded by Archelaus. Now Herod was also known as Herod the Great, the king of Jews. And he has been described as a very able ruler, but at the same time cruel and paranoid. Now what happened was that he had been warned, probably by astrologers, who are referred to as the wise men of the East, that under certain circumstances which can be seen from signs in the sky, a new king will be born in Bethlehem. This paranoid king or ruler was very desperate when he heard that, because then he thought that his time was near. So he ordered that every single boy or a baby male child under the age of 2 should be massacred. And as many as 14,000 little kids were slaughtered in order to make sure that there was no possibility of any male child surviving at the time when the wise men of the East had predicted that his successor had been born. In the Gospel of Matthew, we find the timeline of the birth of Christ. Now, fearing that Herod will kill their baby, the parents of Jesus fled to Egypt, and they remained there till they heard of the death of Herod. You can stop the screen and read these at peace, or you can even get an online copy of the Gospel of Matthew. It describes what exactly happened. And later, when Herod died, the parents of Jesus and Jesus came back to Bethlehem. This is all recorded in the Bible itself. You can take your time and explore this yourself. The death of Herod is also very well recorded. He died within a few days of a moon eclipse, and that moon eclipse was visible from Jericho. And if we use modern software to determine the planetary positions, we will find that that happened on the night of 12th and 13th March in 4 BC. Further, there's also a record that his death occurred before Passover, which is a major Jewish festival and started on 11th of April that year. Also, there's a reference to his death a few days preceding the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is another major Jewish festival. So it can be said with some authority that Herod died somewhere between 12th March and 11th April of 4 BC. And it was during this time that the parents of Jesus escaped from Egypt for about 2 years and then later returned after Herod died. So they must have returned after 11th of April 4 BC. And Jesus must have been at least 2 years to have escaped that farman of death in which 14,000 babies were killed. So we are quite certain that the death of Herod is a very well documented proof of a date of birth limit. So friends, here are the key reference points that we have gathered so far. First of all, Jesus was born during the reign of Herod. That is very clear because his parents fled to Egypt in order to escape the farman of the slaughter of all male children below 2 years of age. Also, the death of Herod is very well documented and recorded through various sources and various reference points. So that puts the birth of Jesus before 4 BC and maybe as far back as 6 or 7 BCE. Now that means that all our reckoning, all our dates about BC and AD and all that is sheer nonsense. It is at least having an error of 4 to 7 years. Well friends, it's not just about the year of birth which is in dispute. What about the date 25th of December? Let us explore that in a little more detail. In Christian lore, there is a very clear reference to the Star of Bethlehem. In the Gospel of Matthew, it is said that the 3 wise men from the east were guided by this star to the birthplace at exact time when Jesus Christ was born. So that brings us to the question of what was this Star of Bethlehem. First of all, let us just read this verse from the Gospel of Matthew, where it says, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." This is what was said by the 3 wise men from the east. Now we must be clear about one particular fact, and that is that there is no such star with the name of Star of Bethlehem. Was it a comet in that case? We'll have to explore that possibility too. Or it could be a supernova, a massive, gigantic, spectacular event in the heavens, which can be missed by no one. And the third possibility is that it was a conjunction of some bright planets. Let us take each one of these one by one. If we were to consider the comet as a possible candidate for the Star of Bethlehem, there are some essential problems. The first problem is that a comet does not lead to a single direction or destination, unlike stars or planets. A comet is not a good guide for navigation. There is a record of Halley's comet, and that is somewhere around 11 BC in the month of August to September. But we must remember that since ancient times, comets have been considered as bad omens, a harbinger of impending disaster, not the birth of a king for Jews. The next possibility is to consider a supernova. A supernova is actually an event. It's an exploding star. And some spectacular supernova could be visible even in daytime, as has been recorded by the Chinese in the 10th or 11th century. So definitely it was not a supernova, and again, it will not be of any use for purposes of navigation. A conjunction of planets is when two planets come so close to each other that they appear as a single object. This video explains how it appears in the sky. Now this picture is showing the conjunction on 16th of December 2020, and here we can see Saturn and Jupiter so close to each other that they appear as a big object, and they are very close to the moon, or rather the new moon. You can see the crescent just below the two planets. So we saw that the conjunction of planets is probably the best way to explain the Star of Bethlehem. There are many that occurred during that period of time. Now what you see on the screen is one such occurrence which happened on 17th of June 2 BC. This was a Jupiter-Venus which had a conjunction with Regulus, the main star of the constellation Leo. But mark that the year is 2 BC, which was much later than, or rather 2 years later than, the death of Herod. And for this reason, this is out of the running. The second candidate for conjunction is the one that happened on 17th of April 6 BC. This is quite similar to the one we had seen earlier, which was the Great Conjunction of 2020. In this case also, it was a Jupiter, Saturn, Moon and Sun in Aries. Then candidate 3 is a series of conjunctions that occurred in 7 BC. And these were also Saturn-Jupiter conjunctions, and they kept occurring because of retrograde motion between May to December of 7 BC. So what is shown in the pictures is one that occurred on 29th May, a very close conjunction on September 30th, and yet another in December on the 5th of December. But none of these are anywhere close to 25th of December. Now there's another strong contender, candidate 4, which is a conjunction that occurred in 3 BC. Now this happened on 12th of August 3 BC. It was a Jupiter-Venus conjunct in Leo, and it was very close. It was within 6-minute arc. 1 degree has 60 minutes, and this was 1/10 of a degree. Just for your information, if two planets are having a distance of one small finger width, it is 1/10 of a degree. A full moon is half a degree, which is 5 times larger than this. But of course, as you can see from the date, this happened during a period of time when Herod had already died. It was after the reign of Herod. So Christ must have already been about 2 years old or older than that by this time. So friends, what we have seen thus far, we find that the winner for the date of Christmas is 17th of April, and the date of birth of Christ is 17th April 6 BC. So next time you meet someone on 17th April, wish him a very Merry Christmas. There won't be any winter, no snow, and of course there are no reindeers in Bethlehem. But 17th of April is a date which is supported by observation and science. So friends, it's quite natural to ask, why do we choose 25th December as the date of celebration of the birth of Christ? Well, you must remember that this is actually a Roman invention. It aligns with their big celebration of winter solstice, which was a big Roman event. Secondly, it falls exactly 9 months from vernal equinox, which is another big festival in Rome. And that is now taken to be the date of Immaculate Conception. So it's exactly 9 months from the vernal equinox, Immaculate Conception, to the birth of Christ, which is 25th of December. It has nothing to do with reality. Also, in the week-long celebration from Christmas to New Year, that entire phenomenon is absorbed into the week-long Saturnalia, which was a big celebration at the end of the year in Rome. There used to be raunchy parties and so many other things. So all that became into a Christmas week, all the world around. So friends, I still want to remind you that it's time to rejoice and celebrate, even though it has got no relationship with the birth of Jesus. 25th December is not the birthday. In fact, it is an integration of many Roman and other European folklore and pagan traditions. It is actually a cultural myth and not a historical fact. But that should not really bother you. The message of Christmas, of course, is very good. It is one of love, it is one of celebration, and one of enjoyment. Don't miss out on that. But remember, don't call it somebody's birthday. So it's not unusual to celebrate an event even though it may not be the date on which that event occurred. The most common example is that of the celebration of the Independence Day in America. In the United States, the Independence Day is celebrated on 4th of July, even though the Declaration of Independence was signed 2 days earlier, which was on 2nd July 1776. And mind you, that was just a Declaration of Independence. The revolution carried on and there was a war between Britain and the American states. And Britain relinquished its power only in 1983 after the Treaty of Paris. So a similar thing applies to the celebration of Christmas. It may not have any connection with any birthday at all. So friends, you will agree that it's time to reform the calendar. At least let's get our dates right now that we know what is the defining moment to start the calendar. If you wish to pursue this topic further or you wish to confirm the facts which I have mentioned in the video, please go for this further reading list, and through these references you'll discover more references. So that brings me to the end of this video. Thank you very much for your attention. Enjoy your Christmas and wish you all a very, very happy new year ahead.